Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can write anything based off of any topic. This has a lot to do with creative writing, but it's extremely effective when you need to improvise a lot for whether that's like a work-related issue or just for school. It's really important that you can improvise on the spot, details, evidence, facts, anything you can bring up. Not making those things up, but just being able to pull them out at any given time. So, let's begin by addressing how about like something completely random. Let's say someone was testing me and they asked me to write about the color yellow. Well, I would write a couple things about yellow. I would say that the color yellow is a color of duality. What do I mean by that? I mean that yellow can you gotta think about it a little and like don't stop yourself from that thought process. Like continue. That's a really big part of it. You don't sound stupid. You're just genuinely working through it. What do I mean by the color yellow being a color of duality? Yellow can symbolize warnings, or it can symbolize lighter themes of joy and overall happiness. Yellow is mainly seen as warning signs on streets or or are commonly used on baby shampoo bottles like Johnson and Johnson's company to sort of symbolize childhood and innocence. Now, I made all of this just from the color yellow. If somebody gave me an argument and told me to describe why yellow is a color of warning instead of that lighter theme of joy, I could write about that too. I could say that there are quite a few reasons why yellow could be considered a color of violence and potential threat. Sometimes you write and you just delete. That's part of it. It's all part of it. Don't be embarrassed. I would say that sometimes the color yellow is the last color someone sees before getting into an accident. But this is often not the case because the color itself is bright enough to deter drivers from dissociating on the roads. Now, why is that? Why do they use the color yellow? The brightness and contrast of yellow to the environment proves a big role in deterring drivers from visual distractions. So, like, this was done in less than 10 minutes now. So I just began talking about the duality of the color yellow. I talked about how yellow could symbolize warnings or lighter themes of joy, and then later on, I expressed how, based on a hypothetical person asking me why yellow could be considered a dangerous color or a more harmful color, like this statement suggests, I just made this argument. And then I can make the lighter themes of joy argument, but I think you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, color, like that's really boring. How about some other example? Well, let's think here. What else could I possibly say? I would say that like my number one tip is focusing on duality of a subject, and that helps you see both sides of the topic. And so after you can see the duality of it, you can pick a side after that and then focus on that side, which is what I did here. I would say a big reason why people are often stuck while writing is because they don't pick a side. It's because they're just being so open to everything, and they don't know like from what angle to analyze this or that, and they just get so stuck in their head they don't even write. So to get you to stop thinking, you got to think first of the sides to an argument, and this is really taught mostly in rhetorical writing. I think that a lot of creative writers would benefit a lot from learning rhetorical analysis and the way that rhetorical writers tend to argue in their essays and articles. So another topic we can focus on are noodles, let's say. Completely random, and I'm just showing you like how to improvise like on the spot, even in writing. So ramen noodles have been a comfort food for many people in the world. But is it the healthiest option? Just like that. Like, this is the duality that I've made for ramen noodles. It is a comfort food, but is it the healthiest option? Well, we're going to look into that, and we're going to talk about it. So, there are other comfort foods that are readily available for people in all kinds of places. But ramen tends to be the soup that is most easiest for Americans. This is statistically proven, by the way. That is easiest for Americans. What else can we say? We can talk about, is it the healthiest option? Another thing I know about ramen is, however, ramen noodles have proven to contain harmful additives which disrupt female and male hormone regulation. So all of a sudden, this comfort food turns into like this really toxic substance. We can also say that as well. All of a sudden, this American staple for comfort becomes a toxic substance that is widely consumed. And then from there, I can talk about why it's horrible and what other options there are instead of ramen. And so, like, this is the theme. This is the way that you start writing about things, random things. Like, anyone can give you a word and you can write a whole essay about it. So that could be the color yellow. That could be ramen. And maybe I'll just do one more example just to showcase that this really does work. My theory of including duality in a topic just to get you going, just to get you writing about the topic and thinking about the topic. Okay. How about bunnies? will write about bunnies. Why not? Who doesn't love bunnies? They're cute, cuddly, soft, and delicious. You either smiled at first and frowned after, or you continued smiling throughout the end of the second sentence. That is because bunnies have multiple purposes behind them. You could skin a bunny for its fur. You could cook a bunny for dinner. Whether you were, I knew I got that wrong, yeah. Whether you were offended or not at the mention of a bunny being delicious, it is edible and useful among many cultures, and even a culinary, what could I say? A culinary meal of tradition for them. So like here we talk about bunnies. Who doesn't love bunnies? They're cute, cuddly, soft, and delicious. You either smiled at first and frowned after, or you continued smiling throughout the end of the second sentence. That is because bunnies have multiple purposes behind them. You could skin a bunny for its fur. You could cook a bunny for dinner. Whether you were offended or not at the mention of a bunny being delicious, it is edible and useful among many cultures and even a culinary meal of tradition for them. So we could go many places with that alone. Like we could talk about keeping bunnies as pets. We could talk about cooking bunnies, hunting bunnies, using bunnies as lab rats for experimentation. We could talk about the cultures that embrace rabbits for meals. I didn't even include the fact that rabbit feet are seen as a lucky charm in many cultures as well, including American. And these are just examples, okay? I could fill the rest of the page up with examples, but I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing me talk. So, take my advice. Think of the duality. Think of what constitutes this topic and what multiple arguments you can pull out of it, and definitely link it up to some cultural aspect. I feel that there is a cultural aspect in every single one of these. For example, I brought up in the bunny excerpt that quite literally many cultures and even a culinary meal tradition. For ramen noodles, I brought up that this soup is the easiest for Americans to make. For the color yellow, I brought up like this company, which is an American company, and that's part of the culture. And the yellow, which is the main color for warning signs on streets, primarily an American thing, but it does exist in other countries too. As you can see, it all ties into real world things, even though the topic is broad or, just like totally random. We went from yellow to ramen to bunnies. I don't know how much more random we could get here to get my point across. So, that's all.